Good morning. This is another edition of Now and Then. I want to talk about when will war end? I'm not talking about the wall. I'm not talking about the wall in Ukraine and Russia. I'm not talking about the wall with Israel bombing Gaza. I'm speaking of wall, just wall. When will man stop using the art of war to settle differences? When will man stop using the art of war as a means of achieving objectives? That's the question that I am asking. Yesterday, President Trump called Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and the leaders of the European Union. He hosted them in the White House, and he had already had a meeting with President Putin on Friday. And this is a way of negotiating and talking, trying to end the war that Putin, Russia, started against Ukraine. And so they are trying to get Russia to come to an agreement of ceasefire and then negotiate the terms of the end of the war. And one statement that I believe I heard uh, President Trump make was that this is the worst war with the most uh, loss of life that has ever been. Well, we know that that's really is not true. I can cite many wars where the number of casualties, the number of deaths has exceeded where we are now in Ukraine. In fact, let's go to World War One, where there were 21.5 estimated million that lost their lives. Some 8.5 million soldiers, and then on top of that, the civilian death was about 13 million. So we know that that number far exceeds where we are now with the war between Russia and Ukraine. And then compare that with the Second World War, where there were a total combined of estimate 75 million to 85 million that lost their lives. So nothing compares at this point to those type of wars that has already devastated the whole world and brought about the unilateral decisions that we're going to try to iron out our differences and not use war as a means of doing that. The United Nations was formed to try to accomplish that. We're going to iron out our differences instead of nations going to war after nations. They have the Article 5 in the United Nations that's supposed to deter, use as a deterrence for nations going against nation. If you are a member of the United Nations and then someone attacks you, then the whole membership of the United Nations are going to come to your defense. That's Article 5, and that's what should uh, be implemented to prevent nations from going to war against nation. Where Russia is a member of NATO, was, and we know Ukraine is not, and so there is no combat there that will trigger Article 5. However, it is said that Russia, Putin, is trying to not just get Ukraine, that if he gets Ukraine, then his eyes is set on the European Union, all of Europe. That will trigger Article 5 because there are countries in the European Union that are members of NATO. And that's why anytime that you have a meeting now as far as ending the war in Ukraine, that NATO is involved because NATO is the backdrop to what they believe Putin is doing with Ukraine. Now, we have heard President Trump make all kinds of statements. One asked him the question, someone asked the question, well, if Putin attacks NATO, attacks the European Union, would you get involved? Because that's Article 5. And he said, well, it all depends on whether I'm a friend to them, which is totally different from Article 5. He makes these types of statements. So the European Union really don't know what he's going to do one way or the other. But now they are meeting because he had this meeting with Russia, with Putin, and he's been saying prior to the meeting on Friday that Putin has to agree to a ceasefire. And if Putin does not agree to a ceasefire, then he, President Trump, is going to be very upset. He's already went to India. He told India, listen, stop purchasing Russian oil. He said, stop purchasing Russian oil because you are aiding Russia in the killing of Ukrainians by purchasing the oil and giving them money to continue the fight. He told the same thing to China, but China has minerals that the United States need. And anytime that you have something that the United States need, they're going to walk a little bit different line with you. That's why the negotiation has been kicked down the road for another 90 days concerning China and the agreement with the United States, because China has something that the United States need, not want, but need, has valuable minerals that only they could get it from China. And so they treat countries differently based on what they need from those countries. That's why Trump was dealing with Ukraine like that, because Ukraine has minerals that they want. They don't necessarily need them, they want them. And so they are treating, they're trying to bully Ukraine into a peace deal with Russia, even though Russia started the war. And then the European Union steps in and say, no, we're not going to agree to that. Well, why? They're not going to agree to it. They're not Ukraine, because they know that Putin is not only trying to get Ukraine, he's trying to get them as well. And then President Trump has already told the European Union, listen, I'm going to supply arms, continue to supply arms to Ukraine, but I'm going to sell them to you, and then you're going to give them to Ukraine. Totally different than what Biden was doing. Biden was aiding Ukraine. Trump says, I'm going to sell them to the European Union, and then the European Union is going to give them. Why? Because it is really a European Union fight. When Trump starts saying this is not my war, he is saying it is the European Union. I mean, he says it's Biden, but no, it's the European Union's war, because they are the one that's going to lose. And so they're going to have to bear the brunt of the finances in order to combat Putin. So he's not putting sanctions on China And China is purchasing Russian oil, but he is putting tariffs now 50% on India because India is purchasing uh, Russian oil. But then Putin comes up and says that since the United States new administration has come in, which is Trump, that the exports or the trade with Russia between Russia and the United States has increased 20%. So if India, by purchasing Russian oil, is helping Russia with the Ukrainian war, then if the United States are purchasing and doing trade with them, and that trade has increased at least 20%, would you think that we are also helping? But since we don't have a say in the matter, and we can't think too good, then it's just India that is doing that. But yesterday they met. One other thing before I get to this. He says that they're going to talk to Putin, and Putin wants to swap land, want a land swap as part of the negotiation. Okay? Well, the land swap is all Ukrainian land. So now they are asking Ukraine to swap their own land for land, their own land for their own land. What kind of deal is that? And now they are meeting with the European Union and with Vladimir Zelensky, and they are saying, "Listen, now we need to come to an agreement." And I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I believe that the European Union is going to go against what Trump is pushing, which is what Putin is pushing. War will not solve anything. Negotiation will solve. Whenever you start having a problem, you need to sit down and you need to talk. Now, I agree with Donald Trump when he says the lives are being lost. Yes, lives are being lost. And that's what's going to happen anytime you have war. Lives are going to be lost. The reason why you have a war is to kill people. You don't have no wall just to go over there and shake hands. A wall is intended to kill your opponent. And that's why the question is, when will war end? When will man stop trying to solve their problems against each other by fighting each other, by going to war with each other? Now, I don't know the answer to that question, but I do hope and pray that they will come to some type of agreement where this particular war will end. And I haven't even gotten to the war of Israel. You don't even hear Trump talking about the war of Israel and what is happening over in Gaza. He's talking a good game when he had Prime Minister of Israel coming to the White House. He said that was going to be, a time where they were going to agree and end the war. Well, that did not happen, and they're still killing. Not only killing, but they're starving the people. They're starving the people. And the United Nations had a resolution saying that we're going to condemn the starvation. And guess who did not sign it? Trump said, "Yeah, see it," but he did not sign it. He did not sign it. So war needs to stop. I hope that they come to an agreement. But they won't come to an agreement with the backdoor issues, backdoor policies that are happening because people see deceit. The end of war has to have some measure of trust or some measure of the rules of the game. I just was talking against the rules of the game. But you have to understand the rules of the game. And that's why Trump was telling Zelensky, you don't have no cards. Well, it seems like with the European Union, he's getting a pretty good hand right now. Yeah. And because Trump was trying to make a deal with Russia, remember Putin said they already increased the trade by 20%. Trump had a bigger deal on the table with Russia if he could get this war ended. But Russia, Putin, kept bombing. Even though he was telling one thing to Trump, Putin kept bombing. And now Trump is upset with Putin, not because he's went back on and started bombing, but because Trump know until he can get this war stopped, he can't make more money. That's the only reason. He can't really get the minerals from Ukraine. He can't get the deals that he's already made with Russia. He can't get any of that going until this war stops. That's the problem. That's the deal. I hope the European Union will stand their ground. We already know what Zelensky is going to do. He's going to stand his ground. But he's kind of boxed in because he can't fight Russia by himself. So he has to give some grounds to what the European Union wants or even what Donald Trump wants. I don't know where it's going to end, but I do know this. War needs to stop. War needs to stop. Most presidents run on the campaign of either ending a war or not going into a war. But that's just the United States position. Other nations, uh, they have their own position, and if they want to go bombing somebody, they're going to go and do it, and then we are drawn into it, like with Gaza. We are drawn into it, and we are still sending arms over there to Israel, and Israel are using those bombs and those that equipment and everything, weapons and everything to still kill people, and we are still sending it. If you want to stop, you need to stop sending the arms. Stop supporting them. But because you have Donald Trump in the White House, he's not going to stop because he wants what the president or prime minister of Israel wants. He wants Gaza. He want to make it an oasis for the rich and the famous. He want to displace 2 million of the inhabitants. Somebody always wants something when it comes to a war. We need to find out what it is they want, what it is they will accept, and end the war. I'm not asking Zelensky to give up nothing. I am asking the world to stand against Putin. That's what I'm asking. The only way you're going to stop the war is that you stand against him. And I'm not asking India to stop buying oil from him. Yeah. If I'm going to ask India to stop buying the oil from him, I'm going to ask the United States to stop having trade with him also. Yeah. If you can do one and talk against one, you can do the other and talk against that one. But the United States is not going to do that because they need something. They need something. And if they even don't need that, Donald Trump wants something. As long as he wants something, that's what he's going to play his game in order to get it. This is Clarence Williams. This is another edition of Now and Then. Like this, check this, comment on this, subscribe to this, and I'll see you